Welcome to the Victimology Report, where I study the victims of crimes and the psychological effects that their traumatic experiences had on them. Today's episode will be about Alice Hardy, a young lady who survived an encounter with a vengeful killer, only to have to face someone even more sinister. In June of 1979, Alice Hardy was one of 7 camp counselors hired by Steve Christie to manage renovation and repairs at Camp Crystal Lake. The locals often referred to the place as Camp Blood. Alice would leave her previous life in California as an artist to help out Steve. She would continue to demonstrate her skills as she drew pictures of Steve that fateful summer. The two of them were also involved in a romantic relationship that often made her feel uncomfortable. Steve, sensing the uneasiness in Alice's demeanor, opted to take things slow. He requested that Alice stay for a couple of weeks at the camp, and if she felt dissatisfied, she was free to return home. Alice would form friendships with other counselors that Steve hired. Among them were Bill Brown, Ned Rubenstein, Brenda Jones, Marcy Stainer, and Jack Burrell. While cleaning the mess hall, a local doomsayer known around town as Crazy Ralph emerged from the pantry. Startled, Alice screamed as the other counselors came to her rescue. Crazy Ralph would forewarn them that they were doomed if they didn't vacate immediately. Although disturbed by the ominous warning, Alice went against her better judgment and decided to stay at Camp Crystal Lake. As the day progressed, a bad thunderstorm erupted, forcing Alice, Bill, and Brenda to remain in the main cabin. Jack and Marcy returned to their cabin, while Ned suddenly disappeared. Alice and 2 others would spend the majority of the night playing games, smoking, and enjoying a few beers. The 3 would eventually go their separate ways. Alice would later go to the generator building, where she found something that she couldn't have imagined. Bill's lifeless body pinned to the door with several arrows. Filled with consternation, Alice led back to the lodge. As she secured the door, Brenda's deceased body came crashing through the window. Alice then ran outside into the rain, where she saw the headlights of a Jeep approaching. A middle-aged woman emerged from the Jeep. When Alice questioned who the strange woman was, she politely introduced herself as Miss Voorhees. Frantic, Alice tried to explain to her that everyone in the camp was dead as they returned back to the cabin. Miss Voorhees began to tell her all about her son Jason, who drowned at the camp back in 1957. Miss Voorhees' voice grew more intense as she replayed the tragedy of her son in her mind. It was at this critical moment that Alice realized that Miss Voorhees was responsible for the deaths of the other counselors. Miss Voorhees screamed in rage, "Look at what you did to him," before attacking Alice. She fought back bravely and managed to escape from Miss Voorhees momentarily. Infuriated, she chased Alice down to the shore of the lake where Alice would make her last stand. After a brief struggle ensued, Alice managed to get hold of the machete. She angrily lunged forward and beheaded Miss Voorhees, mentally and physically jaded. Alice wanted to get away from Camp Crystal Lake. She gathered up enough strength to pull herself inside a canoe and rowed out into the middle of the lake where she fell asleep. The following morning, a police cruiser arrived at the camp. The police officers called out to Alice, thinking that she was about to be saved. Jason Voorhees emerged from the lake and pulled Alice underneath the water. Alice would wake up in the hospital bed, realizing it was only a nightmare. The officer informed her that she had fell overboard, and she was rescued before she drowned. Alice would ask about the boy in the lake. The officer was confused and replied that they didn't find a boy at Crystal Lake. Alice, fully convinced that what she had seen was real, stated that he's still there. Alice would eventually return home in hopes of recovering from her trauma. There were too many sleepless nights because she couldn't unsee the young boy Jason. Was he really real, or was this merely a figment of her nightmares? She would attempt to reconcile her relationship with her mother and move on with her life. Unfortunately, Alice wouldn't get that chance. Approximately 2 months later, an adult Jason Voorhees would seek vengeance for the slaying of his mother. He entered her home undetected. Jason would creep up behind Alice and stab her in the temple with an ice pick. Alice would be the first victim of Jason Voorhees. a complete stranger that she knew nothing of other than the legend of a boy that drowned at Camp Crystal Lake. This has been the Victimology Report of Alice Hardy. I hope you enjoyed episode 1. Please like and share this video and subscribe for more content.